All right, as everyone starts to pile in here, I would like to welcome everyone to the Bicycle Advisory Committee meeting, the Infrastructure Subcommittee. Today is May 24th, 2023, and we'll get started. The mission and vision. The mission of the BAC is to advise, make recommendations to the commission and director on issues related to bicycling in the city, including, but not limited to, amendments to the bike plan, bicycle safety and education, implementation of the bike plan, development of strategies for funding bicycling projects related to bicycling, and promoting public participation in bicycling. The BAC vision is by 2027, the city of Houston will be a safer, more accessible, gold level bike-friendly city. All right, I'll start with the Infrastructure Subcommittee roll call. When you hear your name, you can push *6. I'll come off mute to say here. We have Tom Thompson, Chair BAC.
Here.
Thank you, Tom. Joe Catrufo, Infrastructure Subcommittee Chair. Absent. All right, Leah Chambers. I see you, Leah. Okay, can't hear you. Okay. We have Alejandro Perez. Jessica Wiggins.
Here.
All right, got you, Jess. Johanna Mahmood. Ben Drews. Okay. Amar Mohite. Mike Van Dusen.
Here.
Thanks, Mike. Anna Ramirez Herta. All right, Robin Holzer. No, okay. And our ex officio members, Ian Lovich.
Lauren Grove stepping in for Ian.
Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate it. David Fields.
Present.
All right. Juvenal Robles.
Lawrence filling in for Robles.
Thank you so much. All right. Any members I may have missed during the roll call have joined? Right, here's some Microsoft Teams meeting instructions. The agenda and slides can be found on our website, HoustonBikePlan.org/BAC. You can also join by phone by dialing 936-755-1521 with using ID 114-253-400#. Also, some meeting instruction. If you're dialing in, please remember to stay on mute unless identified by the chair. You can press *6 by mute and unmuting. Before you is our agenda, and we'll start with the director's report.
Thanks, Brendan. And good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Bike Month.
Hey.
I think many of you know about all the activities that have been going on by Houston's 3-day summit, including tonight, which Joe sends his regards. He's just finishing a couple of things up, so that's where he is today. Last week with Bike to Work Day, which was a really great event. Thank you to everybody who joined us. Thank you to our staff who organized it, all the departments that participated, and all the community members. There was a lot of energy. It was a very good event. So for my report, I have a few things that I was asked to follow up on that I have updates for. First of all, I think last month I had told you all we were gathering a group of agencies, as well as Tom representing the BAC, to talk about safety on trails. We had that first meeting. What we learned was there is actually no standard by any agency about trail construction and detours. There's some different practices, but so we're in development with our peer agencies to develop something that we can all work from. Number 2, this Space City Sweeper is back in service. Yay, thank you to our friends at Public Works. They just did McKee and Lyons. They also swept in advance of Bike to Work Day. I saw the pictures of how much this thing picked up. We're talking like loads and loads. You had no idea until you saw it. So now Public Works is going to start matching up the bikeway sweeping with the street sweeping schedules that they committed to when we got the sweeper. Number 3 is our strategic projects. actually have two more updates. The strategic projects, so the funds were allocated when you all voted on it. We will not have any issue with the end of the fiscal year coming up. Those will roll over. The city, we did have an issue with the design contractor that was awarded. I cannot give you details because I don't exactly understand them, other than it had something to do with the MWBE requirements. So now they need to rebid it. So we're a little behind on implementation of projects, but we're not losing our the funds for these projects. They are in the queue. We just need to get down to it. And speaking of the budget, this was a request from Tom just this week. You all may have seen the mayor released his budget last week, I think. We took a look. The Bikeways has the $1.1 million allocated as it has for the last few years, and any dollars that had been programmed from past fiscal years that were not yet spent have been rolled over. So we're all good with anything that has been programmed. We are not losing anything, and we can keep going on the path we're going on. And then lastly, something long time you've all been asking for the July BAC of the whole, we will have a presentation by TxDOT on NHHIP and the bicycle components in the MOU and VRA, the agreements that are moving the project forward. I think that is all I have, and I'll take any questions. Tom?
Yeah, sorry, I just had to find my mute button. I think I mentioned this in an email to you, David, but what is the city doing to leverage, the 1.1 million with all the new funding opportunities from the bipartisan infrastructure law, to bring in those dollars?
Yeah, so what we're doing, we have the bike prioritization methodology that pairs with the Vision Zero High Injury Network. And those two data sets are basically, as any external funds become available, that's where we look to say, look, we know what we want to do. We know the places, help us either with funding for design or implementation. That is what led to the Telephone Road Raise Grant, chose a bike component, the Bissonnet Safe Streets and Roads for All, the planning study for Gulfton and beyond, as well as when we're looking at TxDOT safety funds or any of the other ones. So we use the 1.1 million is really programmed for the projects that the prioritization has said we should work on, but the methodologies that got us there basically help us write the grants every time there's an opportunity.
So what, I'm sorry, the sound got a little fuzzy. So what does the $1.1 million actually fund?
So that goes to the projects that we finished that are either in design or are ready to go to construction. So that recently went to 11th Street, it's going to North Main, it'll go to Patterson, Parker Road, and then eventually the next step are Irvington, Washington, and the Gulfton extension. So we're all programmed, ready to go to use that dollars when the design's ready to go.
Got it. Okay, that's great. Thank you.
What I will say, just to kind of put a bow on it, the last couple of years, we spent a lot of time with you all and staff resources to get organized. And I know that doesn't sound like something very exciting, but
right,
because of the methodology, because of all the detailed analysis we've done, now we are in a very good position to be able to work on projects in a real way that we can defend why this is the next one on the stream.
Right. That's great, David. Thank you.
Other questions?
All right, seeing none, thank you, David. We appreciate it. We'll move forward with our agenda to the chair's report. Joe isn't here, but Tom, you have anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I wanted to add a couple things. Well, really just one, and that's hopefully most of you had already heard, but for those of you that hadn't, there were a couple of biking incidents. One was a collision, one was just aggressive behavior. The last couple of weeks, the one a couple of weeks ago was our own Dr. Vion McReynolds, who was participating in the Ghost Bike ride. And You know, it's disturbing enough when drivers act aggressively. I don't know what all the details were on this, but it looked like the motorist cut in on the group of cyclists and somehow tapped Dr. V's trailer. I don't know how hard the tap was. Fortunately, Dr. V was not injured. The trailer was a bit, and Dr. V went back and exchanged information with the driver, so that's good. I don't know if it was intentional on this driver's part. I don't know why he was cutting in. Maybe there was a turn coming up that he needed to make. I don't know all the facts, but you know, that was disappointing enough. And then on Bike to Work Day, as they, this is really something, as the group was approaching the end of the ride near City Hall on Lamar Street, a driver, for whatever reason, became very impatient with the cyclists and cut in front, very closely in front of one of the cyclists on Lamar, on the driver's way into the parking lot there, or parking garage. And I'm not aware of any citations being filed in in either of these incidents. You know, the good thing was nobody was hurt. The concerning thing to me is that such behavior, of course, occurs, you know, that it would occur at all is disturbing enough, but that it occurs in the midst of group rides, and particularly one with police escorts, is amazing to me. You know, that a driver would feel that they can get away with that, and indeed did in this case, at least in terms of the Bike to Work Day thing. So I don't have any solutions for it. You know, there have been concerns expressed that some comments made by certain council members disparaging the bikeway program and saying nobody rides on them. Well, obviously they do. But that doesn't help. And I don't know what the solution is to that either. Obviously, there's different opinions on these things, both on the council and in the greater population. I just really wanted to bring it up here for awareness among the committee members and those who are tuned into the meeting and participating in the meeting. It's just another disturbing set of incidents. Thank you.
Hey, Tom, they did make him internet famous. They know exactly who the guy is. He's been very popular, I think, on the web, because he got shared to Grizzly's Hood News. The whole video made the internet rounds. I shared it as well. It's pretty crazy.
That was the ghost bike one?
No, this nothing goes, but that was where they got the gentleman in the Mercedes G-Wagon cut in front of the gentleman during the ride. I think that's what you're talking about. That is the film. Yeah, he's internet famous at this point.
Well, I guess that's good.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate those remarks. Now I'm going to move into public comments. Send written comments to the BAC email at bac@houstontx.gov by 5 p.m. the day before the BAC meeting. Comments will be read aloud by staff during the meeting. You can comment by phone by dialing 936-755-1521 using ID 114-253-400 #. You can press *6 to unmute when called upon by the chair. You can also make a comment via Microsoft Teams. Just type your name in the chat and you'll be recognized by the chair to speak. At this time, Chair, we have one person signed up before the meeting, George Fry. I apologize if I'm pronouncing your last name wrong. I believe he's here. George, are you there?
Hi. Yes. Thanks, Brandon.
All right. You go ahead.
I sent in some pictures. I don't know if you can share those.
I don't have them available. I'll make sure the committee has them in the follow-up email.
Okay. Thanks. Hi, I'm George Fry. I'm the president of Super Neighborhood 14, which is Lazy Brook Timber Grove, just inside the loop, northwest corner. And we were able to have a bike to school day with Sinclair Elementary earlier this month, where we had about 150 people, students, parents, teachers, all riding together. We ended up riding. To get to school, we have to go through the high injury network, and we passed a ghost bicycle as well. But what made it really happen was this is a known problem for the area, that HISD police is frequently out ticketing right in the school zone, and HPD is out as well ticketing at school drop off school and pick up from school. So during the bike event, what made it really possible is that we had 6 cruisers out there. So we stopped multiple intersections, and so people were finally, they felt willing, safe to come out with the help of 6 cruisers and our usual crossing guard. Without that, people are afraid to get around in the area. The area was designed around the car in the 50s and 60s. There are no pedestrian crossings. There's no signals in the area, and so it's a fairly dangerous area. But there's a lot of demand. Our neighborhood is adjacent to White Oak Bayou, so you can see it, but you just can't get to it without crossing a 4 or 5 lane major thoroughfare in the high entry network. So I just want to highlight to everybody, just curious, looking for suggestions. We're struggling to get registered on any of the metrics within the city. The high entry network that we're a part of is usually listed as a relatively low priority, medium priority, because it's broken up into smaller sections, multiple smaller sections, so it doesn't really highlight there. And this is an issue for all elementary schools, all schools in general, is that the peak demand of traffic to a school, it's not an hour, it's not 2 hours, it's usually a 30-minute window, really short window. And so it doesn't really show up on any of the TIA assessments that go out. And because schools are usually, there's multiple ways in and around a school, people are always looking for that shortcut. So it's very difficult for anything like that to be raised. So we're definitely struggling there with all of the metrics with Public Works. But with the county, Precinct 4 has identified us as a problematic area and is looking to help out. And so this quarter, this year, they're supporting us. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even have my camera on. They're supporting us in our application for a TxDOT grants, the transportation alternative. And so we're applying for the grant with the Precinct 4 as our sponsor, and we're looking to provide safer crossings across the major thoroughfares, West 18th Street, 12th Street, and Ella Boulevard. And then we're also trying to connect those intersections with, there's a center point easement, it's the Eureka easement, Eureka Heights transformer easement that runs north-south. Eventually it'll connect into Memorial Park. So there's a pent-up demand for connectivity and multimodal transportation, bikes and pedestrian capability, but we're struggling to get a foothold, get moving. If you look at the bike plan, the Super Neighborhood 14 is a hole. There's nothing. There's bike routes all around, but nothing that will go through. And there's the capability, though, to connect to Memorial Park, Northwest Transit Center.
George, I'm sorry, you have to wrap it up. We got about 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes.
Okay.
Your 2 minutes are up, but you want to wrap it up?
That's it. So I'm just just want to notify everybody and ask for suggestions of what we could do to move forward. Certainly Precinct 4 is supporting us, and we're trying to go out and get grant applications. But if anybody else has any suggestions of what's the best route to actually make the streets safer in the area.
Thank you. All right, I have three more that I would like to read in. One from Ian Johnson says, hello. I emailed and called the bicycle advice bikeways a few months ago and never heard back. I'm not sure really what happened in previous meeting, but I apologize for the duplicate. I've seen on your website that Cold Creek in the northwest is one of the proposed future trails which will connect the White Oak Bayou Trail. I live near this creek, and currently, if I want to bike south of the WOB towards downtown, I have to either bike several miles in the other direction first, or bike east on Tidwell Road, which usually has busy traffic and poor maintained sidewalks. I believe a trail on this creek would make access to the WOB easier and safer for people in the surrounding community. And I simply wish to raise awareness as it works on the latter and work on the latter issues. Got it. David Fields reached out to Ian already, so we are in correspondence with him and we have working towards solutions for him. The next one I'd like to read is from Roy Ortiz Jr. Says, hello, Bicycle Advisory Committee. My wife and I relocated to Houston a little over a year ago, and when we have been pleasantly surprised with the bike-friendly infrastructure, as well as the projects that we are currently under construction around the area. I have been riding my bike to and from my house on the east side of the Adage Reservoir down to the Terry Hershey Bike Trail via the bike lanes on Kirkwood Road. It's a really nice 10-mile ride. In the year I've been riding in this section of Kirkwood, the bike lanes have not been swept nor cleared and had led to multiple flats and unsafe riding condition. Unsafe due to debris, cyclists find themselves riding closer to traffic, which isn't always polite, as one would hope. I've reached out to 311 via phone, no luck. Via the website, also no luck. And even my Harris County Precinct Commissioner, which directed me back to 311. When you get back to me and point me to the right direction, who can I reach out to? Any help is appreciated. Keep up the good work. I called Mr. Ortiz and got him to the right connection. He was going the wrong direction in 311. There's a certain way to get to that reporting. So we got him connected right. All right. Jessica, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
I was just wondering if now would be the time to respond to these comments or after.
So public comment is not usually the time for a committee response. That's for them to speak.
The next one we have is from Cynthia, who didn't leave the last thing, said, hello. I hope this email finds you well. I recently saw on Cavalcade Homestead Bikeway project, and I'm really excited for it. As a resident who lives nearby, who can I contact on adding bike lanes / sidewalks to near Busby Park? There's a bus stop on the corner, and it will feel safer if one existing because of cars and they go too fast in the area. I do not feel safe enough biking or walking to that bus stop. I would really love if that was implemented, as it would allow more people to take public transportation, as I know I would definitely do so. Please let me know your thoughts. I reached out to Cynthia and let her know. I sent her the Safe Streets email, and so she said she appreciated the information. Also sent her to some of the Metro contacts as well. So we'll get her situated as well. All right. And the last one is from Laura Diaz. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Hello, my name is Laura Diaz, and I am the programs chair of North Hill Neighborhood Association. Our little slice of heights just north of 11th Street and west of North Main, both of which have been affected by bike lanes in the past months. I'd love to invite someone to the committee from the committee to speak at our neighborhood meeting this month. We meet May 30th from 6:30 to 7:30 at Proctor Plaza Park. Our guest speaker usually begins between 7 and 7:10. We can provide a projector if you have a presentation. Let me know if someone's able to chat with our neighbors about bike lanes in that area. I believe Lauren Grove reached out to her and responded, and so we are working towards, and we have a
She will be representing.
She will be representing us there. So thank you so much, Lauren. And that is all the public comments. Do we have any?
We have one more, Simon N.
Okay, Simon N, how you doing?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I didn't realize my full name wasn't there. My name is Simon Newton. I live in District C. First off, I just want to say thanks for the great start to this meeting. Lots of great info, lots of great updates. Really appreciate that. On a bureaucratic thing or procedural thing, the minutes for the prior 2 meetings haven't been posted yet to bikeplan.org, HoustonBikePlan.org. It'd be great to see those there. After the City of Houston bike to work ride, I rode home on Lamar along Sam Houston Park. Aztec Rentals had some vehicles parked in the bike lane. They're very professional and nice. I talked to them and they actually showed me their permit to park their vehicles in the bike lane. I'm wondering if this feeds into your earlier comment in the meeting about rules around trail closures for construction, other things. I really feel like if we're going to close bike trail to park vehicles, that alternate accommodation should be made, or lane closed for cyclists or some other action. it does seem strange that we're just parking vehicles and bike lanes everywhere. Final comment related to this is on the actual ride itself, there was another Lyft vehicle parked in the bike lane near the Toyota Center. They may have had a permit, there was no one there, but it's a bit unfortunate to see all these vehicles parked in the bike lanes. Thanks.
Tommy, we'd appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I run the website, so I'll double check that those notes are there and we'll get it refreshed. So thank you so much for that. All right. Now we're going to move forward. We're going to talk about the North and South Canal project being presented by Kevin Hammond of Public Works. Kevin, you there?
Yes, sir. Yeah, Brandon, I'm here. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, great. So I'll begin. I'll just flash my face for a little bit so you can recognize me in the building or outside the building. Hello. And then, so this project, well, I was asked by actually Tom Compson, he had a couple of questions. So I hope I'm able to answer his questions throughout the course of this presentation. But if you folks have other questions, or if he has other questions, feel free to stop me and we can discuss those as I'm going or at the end. But essentially, my presentation is intended to review the North Canal High Flow Diversion Channel project. So that's my project where I'm the project manager for the city of Houston. I work in capital projects, and the focus of this presentation is to review the proposed bicycle and pedestrian components of the project, and looking at also impacts to the existing facilities during construction, how we're accommodating for that. So next slide. So let's give a real quick overview of some intro information. The project is it's a federally funded project. There's a 35% federal component and roughly a 65% local component. Local funding partners are those that are shown there is Flood Control, TERS 5, TxDOT, and the city is also a funding partner as well as leading the effort. The city was the one who submitted the Harvey HMGP Hazard Mitigation Grant application. So we get the honor of leading the effort, and then we're certainly coordinating with all those folks throughout the design effort. And I can say the purpose of the project is simply this: it's not to mitigate for any one particular CIP project, city CIP project. It's really flood damage reduction. So we intend to make these improvements and reduce the floodplain within the project areas wherever we're impacting, or wherever we can make that impact. And then also shown here is just a note that aesthetic enhancements are not a part of the federal FEMA scope. We can't create new trails, create new features such as that. But what we will be doing is we'll be replacing any impacted facilities. So I'll turn that off. And so, but what I can say is the project has another partner. It's a future amenities partner. It's Buffalo Bayou Partnership. And so at the North Canal area, they'll be the folks who you'll see in the slides as we get to those, where they will be providing those aesthetic improvements. So additional trail features and connectivity, as well as other enhancements, landscape enhancements, et cetera. So the city projects essentially intends to make these wholesale improvements to improve conveyance. And we have a future amenities partner is Buffalo Bayou Partnership for the North Canal area, where they'll come back after us, after we complete our construction, and provide those additional enhancements. So I can identify that the City of Houston's design consultant is HDR Engineering. We're looking to get them under contract, bring them to council next month, and kick off our City of Houston Phase 2 final design. We completed City of Houston Phase 1 preliminary design last year, and so it's taken that much time to get this all settled, the scope and level of effort, to then bring them to council, but we're almost there. And so that current schedule reflects that, where it's June, hopefully get to council and approve their amendment to award final design, and then that's going to run a couple of years through the summer of 2025. That produces sort of construction drawings, specifications, and estimate that package. And then once we'll then submit all that to FEMA, they'll hopefully certainly approve our effort and award us FEMA Phase 2 construction. And then we'll move on to construction, which is a bid award construction beginning spring of 2026 and running for roughly 3 years. So next slide. Okay, so this is the overall, the entire project limits. And there's three primary areas here. I'll begin on the left side of the screen. That's the upstream most component. That's the Yale Heights area. And Yale Heights actually has a west and east component. But I'll dive into each one of these areas in detail after the slide. So I'll just overall, is Yale Heights is one of them, the far upstream side on White Oak Bayou in the vicinity of I-10, in and around I-10 at Yale Heights. And then if we work downstream on White Oak Bayou, it's going to strike Buffalo Bayou at the confluence. That's the main feature of the project is the North Canal Diversion Channel. And so I should be saying that the cyan highlight are the project limits per these areas that I'm identifying. And so the North Canal Channel is shown there. It essentially connects White Oak Bayou at the upstream end, pushes through developed property, city right-of-way, active rail line, metro bus facility, and then connects that new channel segment with Buffalo Bayou on the downstream end. And then the last component, the most downstream component, is shown there as South Canal Channel or diversion detention area. Again, that's that cyan area. It's currently shown underneath existing I-59, I-69 infrastructure. But what the expectation is that TxDOT will come along with the North Houston Highway Improvement Project, relocate their infrastructure per their plans, relocate that to the south, and allow the city to provide our enhancements, our improvements in that area. And it's essentially a smaller version of a canal in that section. Okay, so I'll dive into each one of these areas beginning, at Yale Heights. So next slide, please. So Yale Heights area, next slide. So this is a good before and after photo. This is from the city's preliminary design effort, from HDR's effort. So on the left side, you'll see the existing White Oak Bayou channel. It's looking upstream at Yale Street. And so it's a concrete lined channel with side slopes, lined side slopes. And then the important feature for you folks is on the left side of that image is the White Oak Bayou Greenway Trail. It's an existing off-street bikeway. And so the city's effort here is to improve conveyance, to move more water through that cross section. So the way to do that is the right side shown as proposed. And so what we'll be doing is be widening the bottom width, removing the sloped sides of the channel, creating vertical walls. And so, but the important thing is that we're retaining that White Oak Bayou Greenway Trail. We don't intend to impact that. There will be certainly a drop off there. We are providing railing for safety. But that essentially is the improvements, both at the there's two areas of the Yale Heights area, the west side, and then the east side at Studemont. And I think the next slide will show you the two areas in plan view. So next slide, please. Yep. So this slide here, so the left of the upper half of the screen, left side is the west side improvement. So that's around the Yale and Heights Boulevard area. It's probably very tough to determine what's happening here, but essentially all it's trying to convey is that the tubular-like structure that's winding through the bayou are essentially the limits of work for the North Canal Channel. So it's really just removing the slopes and providing a vertical drop to widen that bayou. And then on the right side are the east side improvements at Yale Heights, and it's essentially the same thing. We're widening the bayou. We're retaining the trail as well, and this is an area that's just west of Studemont and under IH10 for a component, for a part of that component. And then the lower half of the screen is really a snapshot from the city's bike plan, and so it shows that White Oak Bayou Greenway Trail as a green line that's on the southern edge of White Oak Bayou. And so the right side of that is the Studemont area, and the left side of that is the Yale Heights area that is shown up above. So next screen. Okay, and then so far as impacts during construction, I don't have the benefit of having HDR here because they're not quite under contract for City of Houston Phase 2 final design. But I did work a little bit with Trent Rondot from Houston Parks and Recreation Board. I think he's here as well. And so, we will, what I'm showing here in the red are the proposed limits for the city project that we'd seen on the prior slide. So On the lower right side is the Studemont area, the red area, and then going further, following White Oak Bayou on the bottom side of the screen as it winds upstream to the left, you'll see the red improvements there for the Yale Heights area as well. And so the idea is that during construction, we don't intend to impact that trail, and that's going to be our goal. Of course, we don't have final design plans yet, so we'll work towards that goal. But there will be construction activity in the area, so there certainly, at the very least, there may be a need for interrupting access to the trail during construction. So the solution that we have shown here is that purple line, and that begins on the right side of the screen. So it diverts from the, I think it's a White Oak Greenway Trail, yeah, a White Oak Bayou Greenway Trail is labeled there. So it diverts traffic to the Heights hike and bike trail. So that purple line that goes kind of to the upper left diagonal, and then it runs on the top of the screen to the left and connects at, I think it's Moy Street. So it makes a loop around our proposed limits of work. So that's probably one solution we'll be looking at in the final design as a detour and an option to divert traffic, pedestrian and bicycle traffic around our project limits. But also I can show in the next screen, there may be another solution for the work locally at the Yale and Heights area. So I'll show you that. So next screen, please. Let's go back one, Brandon. Yeah, it looks like, do we lose that one slide? It's not loading well for me. Next slide, please. Yeah, yeah, so not the North Canal slide, but the slide prior to this. It's just a zoom in of the Yale Heights West area. Okay, so I don't see it. It doesn't display for me. It's got a white screen along with some black lettering.
Yeah,
You can go to the slide prior. I'll try to explain. Maybe you could, is it possible to zoom in on that area, the bottom middle of the screen, if possible? If not, I can try to explain. Simply, there's a potential to divert a detour around our work.
Might be the closest we can get there, Kev.
Okay, yeah, that's not really working out too well.
Sorry.
If you wanted to show the overall, I'll just explain it. Actually, there you go. It's better than the earlier. Yep.
Okay.
So it's, there's a purple line there. That's simply a detour. There may be an opportunity for a detour to, rather than have the long detour, it's actually 1.7 miles, I think is what it is on that north hike and bike trail. There may be an opportunity for, the work local at Yale and Heights to simply, to move them on city streets, city right away, and get them to the, from the downstream side to the upstream side, and vice versa via either the purple route or the red route. It's going to require a temporary access way or access path along the embankment of White Oak Bayou. I understand that's fairly steep there, so that would be a design task for HDR to solve during phase 2 design. But there may be an opportunity to limit the detour, at least for just the work in this area here. So, okay, we can skip to the next slide. Okay, yeah, so this is the middle portion of the project. The real focus of the project is here, so North Canal area, yep. And so here we go. So there's a lot on this slide. What I'm simply trying to convey is simply this, the shaded portion on the black and white area here. That is, it's labeled as North Canal. That's the 60-foot bottom width of the channel, the new channel. And so it's connecting on the left side, White Oak Bayou, and moving our new channel through developed property. We're going to cross North San Jacinto Street is the first crossing. You'll see just kind of south of the first kind of orange call out. So that's North San Jacinto Street. So there'll be a new bridge crossing at North San Jacinto. And if we continue to the, from left to right along that shaded North Canal 60-foot bottom, we'll get to kind of the middle area with there's a UPRR active rail line that's at grade now. We'll make a we'll construct a UPRR bridge there. And then if we continue further past that loop and then out on the right side, that's Buffalo Bayou. So that's the connection of the channel. So the bottom width is essentially 60 feet. Top of bank to top of bank is somewhere around 220 or so. And the way we get there is from that the shaded dark 60-foot bottom of channel. We simply slope up to then catch that top of bank on either side. The south embankment will be a bit steeper, more than likely, because we are looking at shifting the channel a bit to avoid impacting properties along Wood Street at North San Jacinto Street. That'll be an initial check for the project once we get to phase 2 final design. But all these red callouts, what they're trying to convey is really the future enhancements by Buffalo Bayou Partnership. So, I described the rough outline of what the city will do, which essentially build the channel section through this area and provide connectivity, bridges, both vehicular and train traffic as well. But then in really this area here, we're not impacting an existing hike and bike, not the North Canal Channel itself. There is a existing hike and bike trail south of the North Canal Channel's right-of-way. That's crossing Buffalo Bayou on the lower right of the screen. It's not really shown, but you'll be able to pick it up once it gets onto the land, which is the Allen Street. It's kind of south of the middle of the screen. So this is the existing hike and bike trail, the Heritage Trail that crosses Buffalo Bayou, follows the Allen Street right-of-way, then it crosses North San Jacinto Street. Then there's a bridge that crosses White Oak Bayou. I'm going right to left. And so that's the existing trail. We will impact that, and I'll show you that on the next slide. So largely we're not impacting existing trails, but what the project is doing is providing a space for Buffalo Bayou Partnership to come in after us. And so essentially what they will be doing is providing trail connectivity along the north embankment and the south embankment of our channel. It'll essentially be a shared use path within that sloped area. And if I were to describe things, I would say, I can describe it this way here, that the north side of our channel, there'll be a trail running parallel with our channel itself, and it'll connect McKee Street, that bridge. McKee Street. There's a bikeway on McKee Street, so it'll provide connectivity to that bikeway, and then it'll, moving along the channel, it'll provide connectivity to North San Jacinto Street on the north side. There's actually a proposed stairway there on the southeast quadrant of North San Jacinto Street at Wood Street, and then there's also connectivity to Wood Street via a looped trail system, kind of on the top left of your screen from the north side trail system. But then that north side trail system also carries and continues to and makes a connection with the White Oak Bayou Greenway Trail. And so that describes the north half of the Buffalo Bayou's proposed improvements. Then the south half, the south embankment of our channel, they'll do a similar function where it's a shared use path that's paralleling the channel. There'll be an access point at North San Jacinto Street, and then I can also describe what I heard from them is there probably won't be an access point from the south side to this other feature, which I'll say described as an optional pedestrian bridge that Buffalo Bayou Partnership will consider, and that's it's shown here on the downstream end, so the Buffalo Bayou end of our channel, and so they have a possible option to build a pedestrian bridge so they'd cross the channel at the downstream end and provide connectivity between their proposed trails on the north and south side of the channel itself. That also would provide connectivity to the existing Heritage bikeway that's along Allen Street. And so, yeah, what I can also say is, for this, so that's everything Buffalo Bayou Partnership. And then there's two orange callouts, orange shaded callouts. What those are depicting are the city's project work. And so we do intend to provide, a proposed two-way cycle track on the west side of west right-of-way, the west side of the North San Jacinto Street corridor. And then there's a conceptual effort that was done that shows that connectivity going north Center Street and then west on Wood Street towards First Street. So there's another slide after this that'll provide a bit more clarity on that aspect. And so next slide, please. So here it is. So the right side of the screen shows the green two-way cycle track. So the city project, that limits are essentially shown here. Then the city project will tie into an existing roadway at Allen Street on the south side. And then, and so this is on North San Jacinto Street at Allen Street. And so we'll tie in there. We'll then build our North San Jacinto Street bridge. And then we'll provide some reconstruction on Wood Street as well, due to utility impacts. But the important part for you folks is, that green depiction there is a two-way cycle track. That's also shown in cross-section on the left side of the screen here. And so it's a two-way cycle track, and it's shown as 10 feet there. And then that's separated by a 3-foot buffer. Now moving in that typical section AA, moving going from the left to right, so a 3-foot buffer. And then adjacent to that is a 10-foot parallel parking lane. Brandon, you want to stay on that same slide?
I went to hit it by mistake, sorry.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And then so it's a 10-foot parallel parking alongside that 3-foot buffer, and then further going towards the right on that section is one southbound lane and then 2 northbound lanes. On either edge of that roadway corridor would be pedestrian traffic. I think it's a 12-foot pedestrian realm shown there. So that carries certainly across along the bridge section and the roadway section there. And I will describe a bit more about that on the next slide, please. So what I described was the city's limit of work. So, you're seeing Allen Street on the middle portion of this roadway corridor. This is North San Jacinto Street. So Allen Street is our south limit of work, and then Wood Street is our essentially a northern limit of work. But outside of that, there's also, this schematic shows that connectivity of a two-way cycle track beginning at Commerce Street, running all the way through our project, and then running even further north of Wood Street on North San Jacinto Street. And where that is expected to happen is via the Houston Downtown Management District's TERS 3 effort. They have submitted a DCR, so a design concept review. That was done last year, as I recall. They are, so they'll work through a DCR effort. It's called the North San Jacinto Preliminary Engineering Effort. And so they're expected to complete the remainder of the cycle track, the remainder of those improvements that is outside of the North Canal Channel's limit of work. And their improvements, I understand, would come after the North Canal project. So next slide. And this is simply another look. This is a plan sheet from the North Canal project's 30% design phase. That's the phase we just finished up last year. There's really not much more new information here to show. It's just simply showing that the bridge section, that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 abutments showing the vertical and the darker line work or the abutments of the bridge. And so it just carries, it just continues the same idea. And that's the cycle track on the northern half of the shown roadway corridor. I should actually say it's the western half of this roadway corridor as north is to the right. Okay, next slide, please. So these are a couple of future renderings. These are by Buffalo Bayou Partnership and by their consultant SWA. And so they show a completed not only City North Canal project, but also their completed future amenity improvements as well. And so it's showing stairs that would be by them, also some, those trail shared use paths that I was describing earlier that parallel the canal on either side is shown here. And then next slide. Okay, so then so far as impacts to the existing heights, hiking or the Heritage East Trail here. That's the one that runs across Buffalo Bayou to Allen Street right of way. You know, the North Canal project will do some minor work at the at-grade crossing, the railroad crossing, shown on the screen here. I'm looking at the right side blow up. And so with that, we'll expect to provide a detour for the Heritage hike and bike around our limit of work, providing connectivity to the across North San Jacinto Street to the trail that then connects to the White Oak Bayou crossing. So next slide. So the final project area is South Canal. So next slide. So here, what we're trying to show on the left side of the screen, the larger image in black and white, are the existing features in this area here. So granted, all the all the bikeway here, it's called the Buffalo Bayou Hike and Bike Trail. There's a hike and bike trail on the south bank of Buffalo Bayou as well as the north bank, and that's actually depicted as the green line work on the colored map on the right side. And so, and there's also, if you're looking at the color map on the right side, there's a vertical line that connects either side of Buffalo Bayou, the north and south bank, that it connects either one of those, or connects those Buffalo Bayou hike and bike trails. That's the connection via the old historic railroad bridge. And so all of that is actually shown on the left side of the screen here. It's it's actually within the limits of our South Canal channel, and I'll show you in the next couple of slides where our proposed limit of work is. But essentially, we'll be pushing a channel through this looped section here that you're seeing, that it's getting from a lower grade, looping around to raise the grade to then make the higher at grade bridge crossing, essentially what that loop does. But the South Canal channel will be pushing improvements through that area. So, our task will be to restore connectivity. So next slide. Okay, so there are actually two options for South Canal that the city will be pursuing in phase 2 final design. One option is really that was born from a TxDOT option. It's shown in the screen here. It's a proposed trapezoidal channel. So it's very similar to the North Canal channel section, but smaller, not as wide, not as deep. And so, like we'd seen in the earlier slide, all that work pushes through that looped bicycle trailway that allows connectivity from the north to the south of the bayou. And there's also another option it's a sloped inline detention option. That's actually the one that was preferred by Buffalo Bayou Partnership. And so we'll look more keenly, or as keenly at that as the trapezoidal channel once we get to phase 2 final design. And so I'll show that in the next slide, please. So this is the sloped inline option. So the lower part of the screen has a cross section of the improvements. So the left side shows that it's called out as detention. That's the southern side of this area of the South Canal area. That detention is actually TxDOT's detention for the North Houston Highway Improvement Project. And the black line work is the proposed finished grade. The red dash line is existing grade. So the city project will pick up from the detention basin, the right side top of bank. And so it's working from left to right. We will essentially dig out with this option, dig out and create more storage capacity, or an inline option, lowering the existing ground in this vicinity all the way to the Buffalo Bayou top of bank to the right. And all of this is able to happen. It's all able to take place so long as TxDOT's able to move their infrastructure in time for our project. I've taken a look at the timeline. It looks like we'll have an opportunity. It's just a matter of confirming that once we get to phase 2 final design. And then there's a color graphic here that shows in the background. It shows the historic bridge crossing Buffalo Bayou, and it shows connectivity that will restore in this inline option. So it'll be a raised section there connecting existing trails, for whichever ones we're impacting. And then next slide. So this is the mitigation for impacting the existing trails. So the purple line work essentially shows on the bottom right so the south bank of Buffalo Bayou. It's in the, it's shown in the former Clayton Homes subdivision. So it would provide connectivity via the existing trail, the purple line work, then runs south to Runnels Street and then runs northward on Runnels, connects to the bikeway trail on McKee Street, crosses Buffalo Bayou following the purple line that then loops around on the north bank of Buffalo Bayou and to the right side, then provides connectivity to the north side of Buffalo Bayou. So, you know, that's one option that I expect our consultant to look at once we get to final design, phase 2 final design, which is upcoming. So next slide. Okay, and then you know, we can pause here. There are other exhibits, but they're really more enhancements to what I've already shown. I don't think we need to delve into those. So I'll stop there. If there are questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Okay.
Thanks for that presentation, Kevin. That was really informative. I think a couple questions, and Trevor Reichman raised one of them. At the Yale portion of the project, you know, that trail has become popular. I think the detours are going to be of significant concern to the biking community, and it would be really helpful if we would have an opportunity to participate in that part of the design with whomever is involved with that, from both the city and the contractor.
Okay. All right. So noting, and I don't see why we can't, expand the, during a phase 1 final preliminary design, we had 2 essentially monthly progress meetings. One was with internal funding partners and one was with stakeholders. So we'd look to include you folks in a stakeholder meeting once we get rolling in phase 2 final design.
That'd be great. And I just had a question on the new cycle track that's going to be going north on San Jacinto and then west on Wood Street. What is it connecting to on the west end of Wood Street? It looks like it's going under Main Street, and then I can't tell what it's doing after that.
Correct. Yeah. So, that's really, it was beyond the scope of the North Canal project. That's something that was worked out with SWA with input, I think, from TDO, from the planning group. I know Kang Wen was out there and provide some input during a field meeting. But I don't really have any more details aside from the schematic that kind of shows that Wood Street heading towards First Street. I can certainly look to provide an answer for you, but I don't have that for you at the moment.
That'd be helpful. And I guess this is a question more, this next one is more a question for David and the planning group. This is first I'd heard about TERS 3 pursuing a cycle track along San Jacinto. And it sounds like it's going to start at Commerce and then go north to Ware. I'm not sure about that or what the timing is. So I don't know if David or Brandon or Misty or someone could address that.
Yeah, we've been working with the TERS on that, kind of looping these projects together and recognizing that the next highest tier of bikeway priority projects includes Commerce Street. So once we get started and finished with the 3 we're doing right now, Commerce will be the next on the list. So if we get San Jacinto kind of up and going, then we can follow with Commerce, which has been a desire of a lot of people for a long time to get from downtown to the east.
Right. Okay. We have some questions from the group, and I'll just go in order that I see them on my screen. Leah? You're muted.
You'd think I'd be better at this, but thank you all. Thank you, Kevin, for that presentation. I think it's exciting to see new bike lanes coming in at any point, and I appreciate the intentionality you all are putting into thinking about the detours and what's going to happen in the meantime. I did want to say one comment, and this is not related to biking, but I would say on that first image from the North Canal, I spent the last 2 years working with the Harris County Community Flood Resilience Task Force, and it feels disheartening to see so much concrete in this. We spent 2 years talking about nature-based solutions and options and working with flood control on sort of a suite of tools. And it just made me sad to see that as the solution again. So
Honestly, on the Buffalo Bayou Partnerships rendering you were talking about, right?
no, I'm talking about the North Canal.
Yeah, well, that was actually the North Canal rendering a color image. Yeah. So
No, not the rendering or the
Oh.
one, not SWA. It's just like the big deep trench
Oh, at
straight
Yale?
off the edge of the trail.
You thinking at Yale, at the Yale?
Yes, Yale. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. The
Oh.
first one.
Oh, Yale Heights. Well, we are limited there, and you got to realize the existing section is a concrete line channel. So, all we're trying to do is provide more conveyance, and it's really just removing sloped inline line channel and making a vertical section there.
Yeah, no, I completely get it. We talked this endlessly over and over again. I just wanted to say I would love to see more nature-based solutions in our sort of environment. So thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Leah. Mike Van Dusen.
Yes, thank you, Tom. I have one comment and one question. To follow on with your initial comment, Tom, on the temporary bypass at Yale and Heights. One of the streets you're talking about going on to in the future temporarily would be Kohler, which becomes 2nd Street over by the multi-service center. That is very heavily trafficked area, and anything that you can do to mitigate the conflict between the motor traffic that's there and the proposed bike traffic on a temporary basis would be, I think, very good for cyclists. The question that I have is, it appears that once you get to the downtown area, what you're doing is bypassing the existing oxbows in Buffalo Bayou, which, I mean, I understand why you're trying to do that. The question I have there is, will the existing oxbows be removed or will they be left in place? And the reason is that that's a very historic area there where Houston was originally founded. And so, if you want to provide an alternate path for the water, that's good. If you want to remove the other one, then I don't know that you've got quite enough conveyance through there.
Oh, okay. So you're asking in regards to the North Canal area, the existing Buffalo Bayou channel alignment itself. I guess maybe also at South Canal. Yeah, we're not removing existing capacity. We're not impacting existing channel capacity. We're simply adding to it. So we're adding the new segment.
All right, that was my main question, because taking the, if you backfill the oxbows to gain building space, that I think not so good.
Yeah, I agree, and we aren't doing that. So.
And Trevor, I kind of summarized your comment, but did you want to expand on that or follow up?
Thanks, Tom. That was the bulk of my comment. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. Any other discussion on this?
This is Trent with the Parks Board. Could I offer a few comments? Specifically, it relates to the Heights and Yale area, since that is an area that we work hard to try and manage the traffic through there. Obviously, a detour through here creates issues for a lot of different people, just like when the Heights Hike and Bike Bridge was burned, and that was a challenge to deal with that. The reality is that specific spot, there aren't a lot of options to get around that easily. The one specific challenge that Kevin and I had talked about is that in order for any sort of detour to work in that immediate area, it requires a new maintenance ramp basically to be built west of Yale to get up to the top shelf where you could then get onto the streets. That would have to be core approved because that is a temporary situation, but it would have to be built according to ADA, which is Really why that zigzag ramp up there between Heights and Yale was created anyway was to be able to provide an accessible route to get up to the top slope at Yale. You can come up on the east side of Heights. The comment that Trevor had about potentially widening the trail right there, I think that the challenge we have with that is that that's a very narrow section of channel anyway. We don't have a lot of space, and once this new wall goes in, it's not providing any additional space. So I don't know that we're going to be able to widen the trail through there. I would love to have a wider trail because it is a very congested area. And then the comment about potentially putting a trail on the north side of the bayou. So if we extend all the way down to where the spur was just built from Studimont to the MKT trail, heading upstream from there, we do run into some physical challenges. There are 3 tributaries that dump in, lateral ditches that dump into the bayou, similar to the one on that spur, that would require a fairly substantial box culvert to go over each one of those 3. And then there's also the slope paving at I-10 that would have to be dealt with. Once you get west of or upstream of the other the west side I-10, then we come up closer to the Rutland Pond area. I mean, that would make a lot of sense to have a trail on the north side of the bayou there. But the challenges of the slope paving at I-10 and the 3 lateral ditches that would have to be dealt with, it's going to be an expensive project. Not to say that it couldn't be done, but it would be a very expensive project.
So something that maybe to keep on the radar though, Trent, you think?
Oh, yes. I would love to have trails on both sides of White Oak, basically from Shepherd all the way into downtown. But yeah, it's going to be expensive, but we'll work on it.
That's great. Yeah, I really appreciate that perspective, Trent. That's very helpful. I don't see any other hands up. So thanks again, Kevin. That was very informative. Really appreciate you putting that together for us.
Very good. Thanks for your interest.
Yes.
I'll be in touch once we get to phase 2 for that stakeholder meeting.
Great. Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, thanks. Bye now.
Okay, Ben, you ready to take off?
Yeah, apparently David's going to stage a walk about midway through my presentation because of a group there I just saw. So just a heads up when you see him walk out. You know why. Howdy, my name is Ben Drews. I represent the Greater Houston Off-Road Biking Association. Real quick, just go to the next slide. Today, I'm just going to kind of cover who Gorba is, a little bit about mountain biking, where the trail systems are located, some of the issues with getting mountain bike trails built in the city of Houston, and kind of our future goal or vision of where we're trying to head to. So next slide. So the mission of Gorba is essentially to educate and advocate for single trail, multi-surface, or excuse me, natural surface trails for multi-use. So basically, we want to expand the green space through the use of cutting trails, which is a good thing for most city, county, and local municipalities because it doesn't cost a lot of money for volunteers to go out and cut trails. And what the benefit is when you're out there cutting a trail, you're picking up trash, you're clearing space that would otherwise not be utilized because it generally isn't a floodplain or some other reason that it wouldn't be utilized. So it's relatively low cost and it keeps us connected to the natural green space that's out there. Next slide. So overview of mountain bike, I found the one term was defined as riding over rough or technical terrain on a bike with strong frame, wide tires, and many gears, which apparently they've never heard of the single speed mafia. The disciplines go all over the place, starting from downhill, cross country, slope style, and enduro, but is not limited to just those things. And the beauty of mountain biking is, believe it or not, yes, you can mountain bike in Houston. You do not need mountains. And you just need a little bit of elevation and some ingenuity, and you can create some really cool stuff. Next slide. This is my grammatical error. I apologize. Why are mountain bike trails important? Essentially, mountain bike trails create a natural connection to our environment. They allow us to enjoy the green space that we have, to the point that was made earlier. We have a lot of concrete in Houston, but we don't utilize a lot of green space. Things like overcoming challenges, sort of pushing your boundaries, those are the things that happen out on the mountain bike trails. We have a lot of fun with our family series that we have right now going on in Houston. And we see a lot in the advancements of children and parents as well progressing on the trails. And so you have a large community that enjoys that natural green space that's out there that you would not have if the mountain bikers were not out there cutting the trails. Next slide. Sorry for the mess of a slide, but Houston's too daggone big to do a normal slide of where mountain bike trails. I actually left out our trails go all the way as far north as Sam Houston and Huntsville State Park up in that area, but I didn't include those because they're not actually in the Houston area, so to speak. So you can see we have trails going all the way up to Spring in the Woodlands, all the way as far down south as Galveston, actually. What's unique about Houston is there's actually about 2,000 miles of undeveloped bayou-front property that can connect most of these trails north and south and east and west. And the pre-existing systems that are there all have been cut really nicely, and hopefully we'll be able to grow them. So go on to the next slide. Now, I bet most of you wouldn't guess that the picture there is actually just west of Sam Houston Tollway and just south of I-10. It's actually right there south of the bayou, and that's actually in the Anthills and the Beyond system, which has not been developed into more trail riding system. But essentially, you can see, you would not know that you were in the middle of the city of Houston or near city center if you were just looking at that picture. But it's actually a beautiful little grove back there that's hidden. So to break down the trails kind of going through, the way I broke the trails down was by the beginner style trail going all the way up to the more advanced. So Burroughs Park is actually about 5 miles worth of trail. Most of it is 5 to 6 foot wide, flat surface trail. And it basically is a great place to just kind of get familiarized with mountain biking. Flint Ridge is a beautiful trail system that's about 4 miles up in Spring, and it comprises of just single track running through the beautiful pines up there. Fontenot, I just want to touch on real quick, is relatively new. What's interesting about Jim and Joanne Fontenot Park is, unlike most mountain bike trail systems that you see developed, usually you'll see ATVs and four-wheel drives out there initially. Eventually, the mountain bikers will adopt the trails and the maintenance of it. And then at some point in time, they'll become sanctioned by the city or local organizational landowner to actually use them. In this case, Precinct 2 actually opened up with Operation Yellowbird and is actually wanting to build and invest in a mountain bike trail system in East Houston. So we're working in partnership with Operation Yellowbird and Precinct 2 to try to grow that trail system as well as help that community sort of find its way into mountain biking. Timber Lane is actually up north and just to the east of 45 and represents about 4 miles of trail. It actually has a kids area for mountain bike development and a few small jumps and features. Bridgeland is unique in that it is actually a private system owned by Howard Hughes, but represents about 10 plus miles of trail currently around the Spring Creek Greenway. Cypress Wood represents about 12 miles worth of trail for us, and it's around the Spring Creek Greenway as well. What's going to be interesting about Bridgeland, Cypress Wood, and Cypress Creek on there is you could actually ride all the way from Bridgeland to probably past 45 through the Spring Creek Greenway. And we're hoping that at some point in time, we're actually able to do that. Sugarland I put on here because it's in the greater Houston area. And if you get a chance, Google Sugarland and what they are doing down there. They just invested $500,000 in a Velo Solution pump track. Why that's important is we have a couple of other pump tracks in Houston, but they basically were contractors laying asphalt. It's not the same. So the investment is building something worthwhile for the community. Right now, Sugarland sees about 71% of its traffic to Brazos River Park is not a resident of Sugarland. So you can think about what that means in conversion dollars for the local community there, for people coming in, buying gas, buying food, spending some time in Sugarland. We just had the largest mountain bike race on record in Texas with over 700 plus participants racing in Sugarland in our second annual Sugarland Classic. It's only the second year that Gorba has put that on. Memorial Park is what most people, and probably David, I think that was the one trail that you knew when we first met.
Yeah.
So Memorial Park, and it has a unique history between the mountain bikers and everyone else as far as how, again, trails cut illegally and developed out there. But it's a beautiful trail system. And it's well loved by most of the mountain bikers, and it's recognized as one of the first real trail systems in the city of Houston. Cypress Creek represents 10 plus miles. It's probably actually more in reality. And as we get up here, you're seeing more advancements. What you're going to see in Cypress Creek and the Anthills that you won't see in most other normal trail systems is there's a lot more built features there. So there's a lot of jumps, drops, and different types of transitions. So it basically goes to a more higher skilled type of mountain bike ride. Most of our features, though, range from anywhere from the beginner to some that are slightly below advanced. If you were to have someone from Utah or Colorado come down here, they would likely laugh at most of our stuff because it's not that substantial in the grand scheme of things, but it's still a lot of fun. Jack Brooks I put as the most difficult because I've never been there and I've heard it's scary with roots. So it seems to be something that frightens a lot of cross-country guys. Next slide. One of the biggest challenges for us in mountain bike is when we talk about the mountain bike and risk and essentially mitigating that risk that's out there, because obviously there are some things as the evolution of mountain bike has changed over the years. There's a lot of things that have been added. One of the main key things is the jumping and drops is it's kind of what the real love is, the excitement, the adrenaline rush. And most people probably imagine that first picture there that I've got up there, those pictures I've got of what's built out there. I'm going to tell you that's actually on private property. It's behind my local HOA, and that's built by a bunch of 7- and 8-year-olds. So we'll go to the next slide. On the next slide, you'll see, and actually the guy there riding the bike with the little Anthills logo on his face, that's actually one of the key builders, and he's actually an engineer, and he works out of the Anthills traditionally. And everything that he does is built in a AutoCAD program before he actually goes out and builds something. Sort of the issue that we've had to overcome in time is that's a risk of concern for most people is, well, is this safe? Is this built? But I can tell you that every one of those features is well built and very strong and is thought through before it's put out there, and it is well maintained. All right, going on to the next slide. So today, for those of you who don't know where Bentonville, Arkansas is, I would encourage you to Google Bentonville, Arkansas. If you want to go a step further, I would also Google Bentonville Walton Family Study. At the beginning, I talked about over 2,000 miles of undeveloped bayou land connecting off Houston. And the thing is, while we'll never be Bentonville in the scope of the terrain and the elevation that they have, we have something in Houston they don't have in Arkansas. A very unique ecosystem. And if you've ever been on Cypress Creek, the Anthills, Jack Brooks, or up north in Huntsville State Park, we have beautiful, wonderful environments from bayous to wetlands to coastal lands to pinelands. We have beautiful areas to explore. The other thing is 7 to 8 months out of the year, we have great riding weather. Now, 4 of them, you got to be pretty daggone tough to survive, but you can still ride year-round in Houston. And if we had something to attract people, it would be a massive impact, I think, and it would be a wonderful thing for our city to be known for more than just oil and gas and concrete. The main thing on that study that I was talking about for the Waltons is that they saw an $86 million in health benefits in 2017 when they ran their study. Keep in mind that Bentonville was still relatively in its infancy in 2017. They also know that they brought in nearly $150 million in revenue from the mountain bike community with almost no infrastructure, no hotels, hardly no Airbnbs. That has all since changed since then, and I can tell you now it's a completely different place in 2023. The most interesting part of the study that I found interesting was that 27% of Bentonville residents rode their bikes, and although I hate the 6 or more days, because I don't know if you can do more than 7 days a week, maybe some of y'all can, I cannot, I'd like to make more days. But 6 or more days, which is 11% higher than the national average. And a lot of that is because they have connected their entire green space via the Ridgeback Greenway that runs all the way from Bella Vista, Arkansas, all the way into Fayetteville, Arkansas. Nearly 36 miles of greenway attached where you don't interact with a car. I rode my one wheel 20 miles one direction in downtown Bentonville and never interacted with a car. The whole time safely divided from any major road or terrain. Didn't have to worry about a car interacting with me at all. All right, next slide. The benefits of what GORBA does. GORBA basically can rally volunteers, build future trails, as well as just in general, we don't cost that much money. It doesn't cost that much money to cut a trail. If you got volunteers and you got an area where you tell us we can build in, we can put a trail in there. I like Cosmotic's point. Trails are low investment for the taxpayer with a high return on health and wellness. The other thing that we do with Gorba is we provide a $25,000 accident policy with a $0 deductible to any of our members, whoever rides a bike. It doesn't matter if you're on the road, if you're on the dirt, if you're in Arkansas, New York, or Texas. For $65 a year, we'll give you a $25,000 accident coverage on your bicycle. Trails help reduce crime. One of the biggest things that Jose Jimenez in Precinct 2 told me about Fontenot Park is when they started to allow the mountain bikers to come in there and do work and to build trails out there, they saw immediately a drastic drop in the amount of crime, drugs, and other issues that were going on at Fontenot Park. Before, Fontenot was known as a park that nobody was going to show up to probably after 5, nobody before 5, but definitely nobody after 5 they're going to show up. That changed once the mountain bikers came in there. One of the things we also do is we lead cleanup efforts along the bayou. The pictures to the right there are, the top right and the left one are actually from a recent cleanup effort with a local corporation where we bagged nearly 60 bags of 60 bags of trash, and then as well as debris that was out on the anthills that otherwise would have ended up in the bayou and eventually hitting the Galveston Bay. The other picture there is of a space out, I believe I'm actually in, I don't know which precinct explicitly, but essentially wherever you don't have trails, you have illegal dumping, you have other issues that will occur in there. Whereas if you have a trail system there, you're likely to have volunteers that need to help clean it and take ownership of it. All right, next slide. All right, so I went through that pretty quickly. Sorry, I guess we have the bike summit tonight, so Joe told me to be fast about it. So are there any questions or anything you want to bring up?
I have a question. Do you have any people that are part of your organization and have e-bikes?
Yes. We're a big proponent of e-bike, especially now, just so we're clear, there are class 1, class 2, class 3 e-bikes. Our trails are specific for class 1 e-bikes. That's because there's no throttle, it cannot be throttle assist, it has to be pedal assist only essentially.
Thanks for this, Ben. This is really great. So would you define pump track for me?
Man, I don't suppose you can pull up Google and just pull up a Bella Solution pump track real quick. Basically, Tom, it's they take and they kind of shape the dirt around there and they lay asphalt on top of it. And essentially the basics of BMX, of mountain biking, and any type of trail riding is pumping. And it's basically, if you can imagine, you have rollers and then you'll have basically bowls that come up. And I got a picture, it's hard to explain. It's called a pump track.
A pump track?
A pump track.
Okay, let me see if I can post it in the chat.
Yes.
While you're looking that up, and I think I mentioned this to you before, Ben, and of course, you know Joe Hood, but I think one of his dreams is to put something like that under I-10 adjacent to the MKT trail or Heritage West, whatever it's called there. So I don't know if that'll ever come to fruition, but I think it's also been identified as part of the Two Bridges project in that same general area to, convert what's essentially unutilized and sometimes just wasted space underneath those huge interstate bridges to something useful. And I think it's a cool idea. I don't know if that's on Gorba's radar screen or not.
I think for us, we know one of the things is too, it doesn't necessarily have to be a pump track. You could also put in a basic mountain bike skills area too as well. Right. It doesn't have to be as massive or $500,000 in that case. So right. We are open to trying to help put anything where related to mountain biking. And so that's, our goal is if you bring something to us, then we'll try to figure out like, how do we work that? And also, Misty just dropped the picture into the chat there, Tom, if you want to see, but that's what a pump track looks like.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, it looks like a lot of fun.
No, and I can tell you, it's funny. We've been out to Sugar Land. We actually just did a partnership with Nature Heritage Society of Houston, and we took 10 kids from East Houston and 3rd Ward and took them out to the pump track and spent the day teaching some of them how to ride a bike, and then some of the basics of pump tracking with a pro BMXer and another guy, Don Polk Jr., who's a racer. And I can tell you, those kids did not leave without a smile on their face.
I believe it. Absolutely. And I will put in an endorsement for the new trails that have been built up just north of the Huntsville State Park in the Sam Houston Forest. We rode those a couple weeks ago with Joe, and they're a blast. I will say one pro tip that he shared with us was lower air pressure in your tires is really helpful. when it comes riding over any kind of rough surface, especially with a bunch of roots. So I heartily endorse that.
I wish I could say the same, but I'm 300 pounds, so my pressure stays over 30 regardless.
Yeah, well, 30 is good. 50 is not.
No, no. You don't ride 50 on an MTB trail. No, sir. That is true. Yes. I didn't know you meant 50 there.
Yeah, it was a challenge. Any other questions for Ben? Well, thanks a lot, Ben. That's great. Oh, wait, Leah, do you have one?
Not a question. I just put in the chat. Thank you so much for presenting. It's great to hear about the work that you all are doing and your organization. It's exciting. I have little kids, but my daughter would be so into this. So thank you.
Leah, just be aware, if you want, you can connect with me. I can send you, we have what's called the NAR Kids of Houston MTB. We have kids as young as 3-year-olds on striders. We have groups from the very basic beginners all the way up to the more advanced to what I call our mountain lions group. And so if you want to come out to the trail and give it a shot, we can definitely help y'all learn a little bit about MTB. And like I said, it's all, doesn't matter what your skill level is, we'll help you.
Awesome. I just put my email in the chat. So thank you.
Oh, and I think it is worth repeating too, that insurance benefit that you mentioned, Ben. I keep forgetting to do that, and I've got it on my to-do list. So as soon as this meeting's over, I'm joining.
Good. Yeah, we definitely need more members, and I figured that 25K on a bike is a lot of peace of mind when you don't have to worry about that when you have to go to the hospital.
Yeah, that's a really good deal. Well, thanks a lot, Ben.
Thank y'all for the time. I appreciate it.
All right, just a reminder where we are in the agenda. What we have been, thank you to Kevin and Ben for that. We're now with the open forum. This time is for committee members only to talk about anything that was not on the agenda related to bicycling. Tom?
Yes. So Mike, I see your hands up. Yeah, let's let Mike go ahead and then we can move on to mine.
A question. In 2018, TxDOT got HGAC funding for a off-streets trail that would link MKT to the south side of White Oak Bio Trail. That was about a $2.4 million project that was funded. Has anybody heard of any update on what the progress of that is? Initially, it was to be done in about 2022. Perhaps COVID had an impact on that.
Where was that connection again, Mike?
It's basically otherwise known as the Rutland
right.
Bridge. It's a bridge across White Oak.
Right. Yeah, I have seen that. That's and I don't know where it is in their timing. They definitely have that in their plan, and that's one of the 2 bridges that's been identified by that 2 bridges group. And I don't know, maybe someone else in the group could remind us what the timing is for TxDOT doing that. Is that part of that I-10 expansion project in that area? I can't remember. I get them all confused.
Now, I mean, I'm sure that TxDOT knew about the I-10 plan. I mean, Anna, I think, was the one that promoted this and got the funding done. And I'm sure she was aware of what was happening. So I'm just wondering, I can reach back out to her. She was on earlier, I saw, but she's gone now.
Yeah, if you could share that with the group when you hear back from Anna, that'd be great.
Yeah, because of course
Mike,
there's another. Yes.
This is Alejandro. Yeah, Emmanuel, Kevin Strickland. That's some of the group behind the Tele2 Bridges. They did have updates on that. And I think that was at one of the bridges that you were talking about that was like in design that TxDOT is funded. And
yes,
I think somewhere around designs was completed, I believe. It was a while ago that I heard the news, so like my memory, like recollection of that is kind of not too thorough, but they do have the updates on that. I think maybe if Kevin, if he's in the chat, like get Emmanuel, or if he has the information, send it to the BAC to kind of like giving a heads up about what the the recent timeline on that is.
Like I say, I'll reach back out to Anna as well, because she had another project to the west of there that crossed I-10. And I know that she was wanting to get that done before the I-10 expansion so that they couldn't ignore it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, Brandon, you want to move on to that slide? Yeah, thank you.
And I just want to let you know, Tom, I put them in two. It was the ones on top of each other, so I got them in two. So
Okay.
I broke them up.
And really, this is just, I was hoping that someone in planning could address how this is going to work. This came up on another kind of a chat that I'm on, and I'd heard about it. I hadn't seen any specific designs. First, I'll say I generally like roundabout. I think they're a great idea, and I do think they help mitigate congestion, because there's an awful lot of congestion just due to traffic lights. So I think it's a great concept. Of course, it's always the details that get you, right? And particularly when it comes to accommodating bikes and pedestrians. So I'm a little curious. I can see how the pedestrians are somewhat being accommodated here, although, without any signals, and if it's heavy traffic, I could see that being a challenge. And so I'm wondering about that. And then I'm also wondering about what the idea is on how cyclists are supposed to navigate through here. So wondering if someone in the planning group could address that.
We can definitely get you some answers at the next meeting, or
Yeah, I can follow up with you, Tom. I don't know specifically.
I know that the East End Management District was working on this.
Okay.
So I guess we would need to find out what meetings have happened or what's occurred that, where we can get that information for further discussion.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. Mike, did you have some input?
Not particularly on this one, but there is a roundabout near my home, Washington Westcott, and that is going to be redone here starting in June. And so at any rate, what we see happen there may be an indication of how things get implemented, because they were supposed to put in some raised crosswalks there.
Yeah.
I don't know how much accommodation for cyclists is going to be made. So we'll wait and see.
Yeah, so I guess they're not really changing the fundamental design there, are they, Mike? It's essentially resurfacing, and like you said, putting in the raised crosswalks is, of course, a great idea.
Curbing, and they will adjust the paved surface widths to because there were people going 2 lanes around where they weren't supposed to be, and that was causing a lot of conflict in the traffic circle.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, anything, Misty and Brandon, that you guys can find out for us and share at a future meeting would be helpful. I'm not sure what the timing is on this, or if it even says there. It does say they have a public meeting coming up here. I don't know if there'll be a virtual option on that, but they do have a contact, so that's good. Okay. Any other discussion for our open forum?
I remember I did see the emails. I did hear some conversations about like the progress of the mini sweeper. Tom, you mentioned that like it made an appearance at the Bike to Work Day, or it was, it did a little work on there. But I did want to follow what the conversation is. Is everything working all right? Like, was there plans? Like, how far along are we, and like planning on getting another? Because I know the tall order for that one Space City sweeper, I think his name is, to kind of handle the task of the growing network that we have already. If we want to continuing like meet our goals for the goal level of bike friendly city by 2027. So any conversations about that? But I think, you know, since we're the ones on the other end of the conversations, we don't know much of the details. So like, again, I guess having, you know, Public Works or somebody from planning to kind of give us a heads up or a update on that, that would be kind of helpful. I don't
Yeah.
think Brandon or Misty know any about that.
David mentioned that at the beginning during his report, but David, maybe you could expand upon that a little bit. Yeah, he said it collected an amazing amount of trash during its efforts. But yeah, if you could, what is the planned schedule, at least initially, for sweeping the various protected lanes?
David had to step out for another meeting, so he isn't here, but I'm unaware of the schedule or plans to get another one at this time. I will convert with David and I'll follow up to the committee with those questions, those answers.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Brandon. And Brandon, could you make sure you update the attendees, because we have had some folks come in after you.
Yes, yeah, we see him coming in. Yep, we got him.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other discussion items? Okay, Brandon, you want to move on to the next topic?
I was muted.
Oh.
Yeah, but I also wanted to talk about remember the small projects that we had that we could address with the budget that like the thing we were talking about was the San Jacinto median. I don't know if that was already like implemented, but you know, passing through there and thinking about the recent conversation we had in the presentation right now too about like changes coming to that area as well. How is that affected? And I mean, like I said, is again the issue of like not knowing the details or the, you know, the planning details from like what David and the team are have thought about or going to like the next project if that's already completed, right? What else can we look at?
Yeah, so David had mentioned, I think it's the Main Street project that hasn't happened yet, and they had some changes in design standards, so I think they're having to go back to rebid the project because of that. The good news is that the dollars roll over to next year's budget, so they'll still be there even though the project's been delayed. Brandon or Misty, did you want to elaborate on that?
No, you're correct. Yeah, that's basically what it is. You said it.
Okay. And as far as, I don't know if you all in the planning group had discussed potential candidates for next year, have you?
We haven't, not yet.
So will that start like in July, I guess, we'll start those discussions?
Correct.
Okay.
Can we jump ahead and maybe think of something like between us, what probably we can consider?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, let's brainstorm now.
Yeah.
Why wait until July?
Yeah.
You know, what am I thinking? We can finish up. One thing I've always concerned, and I know the budget may not reach or allow it, but like, you know, as like we just mentioned right now, like new design standards coming into play as we're developing the bike network. What does that look like for like the earlier implementations that, you know, kind of were our first guinea pigs, I guess you could say, that can be updated and upgraded with these new design standards? What would that look like? I think the conversation about Hardy Elysian getting upgraded was a topic at one point, but I don't remember where I heard that from. So I was like, okay, this is pretty good. Oh, I heard this from the management district because up here at Greater Northside Management District, so they're looking at capital improvement projects too, you know, to kind of like help the business area and make it more amenable and, you know, try to implement some multimodal strategies And I remember that highlight was looking at, what the Hardy and Elysium could look like, with new design standards. So, that's close to where I live, and I'm like, I ride that often. So like, okay, well, as an example as of new design standards, I understand that it's a armadillo graveyard out there. So,
Yeah.
I'm thinking like, can we get the concrete curves that,
Right.
have been implemented like at 11th Street? And what would that look like? What cost would that look like?
Mm-hmm.
I think Alejandro, and this is probably a larger conversation of, I think that to me that's basic maintenance, and I would want Harding and Elysian to be upgraded to standard with maintenance funds,
Right.
and still keep the 1 point whatever million we have to introduce new bikeways to other areas. That's just my thought on that.
I agree, Jessica, completely.
Yeah, I'm the same way too, because like maintenance funds, bike lanes always, as long as the same thing with roads, people think that we're just giving bike lanes all this attention, but in reality, all roads need attention no matter what they are because of years of abuse and whatnot. So yeah, maintenance funds, that could be the conversation for that. And like the original thought of what these like small pocket of funds that we have for implementing like more greater connections in between like the network that we have now is
This is where you're gonna get to.
I do want to just plant the seed that we will have a new mayor in November. And, I want to kind of think strategically about what we want to make sure is in place for a new mayor to come in, and kind of intersect some of this work. What would be good for us to have in the pipeline already? What would be a good ask or recommendation of the BAC to a new mayor? I would love to see that $1 million be more.
Yeah. Right.
I think we have the need, but I don't know what our role could be as the BAC as we get closer to the mayoral election, and perhaps it's just a set of recommendations that are very clearly lined out. And perhaps it's just making sure that, we get answering those questions of, I don't know what needs to be in place before the next mayor comes in. I don't know, but at some point, maybe we have that conversation.
I think that's a great idea, Jessica. We ought to come up with kind of our wish list, and it doesn't have to be down to great details. It's like, hey, we want a commitment to make to the plan, including, gold level bike friendly by 2027. Are you on board with that, and doing what it takes to get there?
Yes. Yeah, I like that. Definitely that idea. We are just this election season, and I've heard it before. I think maybe Jessica, you mentioned it, where like this is the only time when candidates will pay attention to you and
Right.
answer questions. So,
Right.
but then again, like, and I think about like, how basically, committees. I do are other committees doing something similar? I don't know, but I'm thinking about that. What is it that the non-government or not party affiliate, or I don't know. It's just like ethics wise with, I don't.
Right.
If there's a line we have to walk when doing this.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. I was having the same thought, Alejandro, and in fact, I was thinking, Brandon and Misty, if you could follow up on that, what limitations are there on our role as BAC members to approaching these mayoral candidates or council member candidates, any elected official, and saying, hey, you know, these are things we want to happen, you know, I mean, are we allowed to do that, you know, as a committee, or do we just have to do it through other channels?
All right, yeah, I'll write that down and I'll follow up.
Mike, you have a question or comment?
Yes, as you know, I'm a member of the Super Neighbor Alliance. We were created in 2000 as an advisory group for the mayor. And we've conducted candidate forums in the past where we pose questions to candidates, ask them to participate for both mayor and council members.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's a lot of work, but if you get
Yeah.
enough people together, you know, and you know, maybe what you want to do is focus on the mayor's race.
Right. I love that idea.
Well, and I think we have to kind of go back to the role of the BAC, because really our role is about advising the city and the planning department in matters concerning bicycling. The forum I think is a great idea. I think that that's something that Hint Bike Houston could take on maybe in the future. But I think something that I learned last time around with the mayoral election is that just having adequate materials to talk through was really a barrier to having meaningful conversations with candidates. And perhaps that's a role that we could advise the planning department to just be prepared with as we go into election season, is that, you know, we want to make sure that our numbers for crashes are updated. We want to make sure that we have an updated map of what's been done and, you know, the financial burden we have to still meet if we want to meet gold level. You know,
Right.
like just being prepared with that data, I think is a great role for the planning department to play. And I mean, I'd be interested to hear from planning department on that, and maybe there's a discussion on what metrics we want to be updated and in what format they're presented.
So, Jessica, I just want to make sure that you guys understand that the planning department is a department in the city, so we have no political affiliation with anything. We can provide you the information that
Yes.
you need as a committee to move forward. But we can't be advocates for, you know, I mean, this is what you're here for, but we can definitely support you in the information that you need.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's kind of my point, is that I don't think that it is our role or your role to host any type of candidate forum or like lean one way or the other. But I do think that there is data that we can make available to encourage productive conversations.
Jessica, it seems to me this would be something really worth fleshing out more in the education subcommittee meeting coming up in June. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can make that a target, and I don't know if, you know, Misty and Brandon, if you guys could maybe work on some kind of draft or outline of kind of the metrics that Jessica's talking about. What's it going to take to get to gold? You know, I mean, as far as, and I know it's not cut and dried. You know, it's not like, you know, the LAB said, you know, you need, you know, 500 miles or whatever. You know, they outlined a few things, you know, where we fell short coming, you know, to get to silver. But I think it's a fair question, you know, if we're going to say, hey, mayor candidate, you know, we want to get to gold, are you on board? And they say, well, I don't know how much it's going to cost. What's it going to take? I think it's a very fair question for them, and we ought to be able to provide some kind of metrics of what's it going to take to get there. And you know, and there are comparison cities, right, that have attained gold. Of course, well, few of them have 670 square miles to cover, but you know, within that, you know, given what we've got, what would it take for us to get to gold compared to what other cities have dealt with?
All right, we'll do. I just want to remind, we have 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for the sake of the conversation, what's left on the agenda after the forum?
Announcements.
Announcements and adjournment.
Oh, okay. Well, Yeah, I have a
So-
topic, but
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Alex.
no, well, I was just saying, I have a topic, but I think it's better suited for the education subcommittee. So I'll hold it for that.
Okay.
Well, let's move forward with announcements.
Right, our announcements, we have our next meetings, which is the Education Subcommittee meeting here at John B. Ray on the 6th floor, at 611 Walker, on June 28th at 2:30 to 4:30. Followed up by the whole BAC Advisory Committee on July 26th at 2:30, held in the City Council Annex Chambers. And then we'll come back right here in August for the Infrastructure Subcommittee meeting on the 23rd.
And Ben has an announcement.
Yes.
Yeah, the flyer for I Can Bike.
I missed it.
No
but
worries,
I'll,
again.
I'll put it part of the post email.
Yeah, in July, they're doing I Can Bike, and it's a group that does bicycle, teaching special need kids how to ride bicycles. So it's gonna be a week in July. They've got multiple slots to fill throughout the entire week, because you will basically partner up with a kid the whole week. So if you can volunteer, it'd be great, but it's a legal organization.
Gotcha.
Thanks.
Sorry about that.
Very good.
Yeah. Any other announcements I may have missed? Hearing none? We thank you for your participation in this meeting, and continue to be great.
All right.
I wanted
See-
to mention announcement, the Bike Summit soiree is tonight. It's probably why maybe Joe couldn't make it today.
Yeah.
So I'll be in attendance. Hopefully some of you guys can be there. And maybe we can hash out maybe the topics for the new the budget that we got, brainstorm some ideas.
That's a great idea, Alejandro. I wish I could attend.
Okay. I'll try to see what I can muster up there.
Okay, yeah, do that.
All right.
All right, well, have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. See you next month.
Bye.